What's up, everybody? Welcome to your Wednesday night Vibe Rant. Happy to see everyone that's chiming in the chat. Y'all are a little quiet though. What's up, Old World McMac, Mojo Shop, my buddy Kabir. We're back with the biblically handsome and wise Dr. Moshe. After our last conversation took us a lot further down a certain trail, then we were able to also fit in other topics. I thought we really need to just do this again, and I appreciate you coming back so soon, and I think we're going to have a really good time, man.
Me too. I agree. I like the topics on the platter today for sure. And I like that tunnel that we just traveled down. I feel like I was mesmerized, and I'm like my brain is in totally coherent state now, so I'm ready to rock and roll.
Oh, that's mostly thanks to Volo, who made the music for the show. That gets us going every time, man.
Very nice.
Yeah, dude. So how you been since our last talk? You know, have any interesting reactions to that?
Well, a little bit. I mean, I had to digest it a little bit because like I don't know where everybody is at in their thinking, right? Like it would be silly of me to assume that I do, but sometimes it's a little bit just to see how deeply entrenched is not the right word, but kind of along those lines that this narrative is, whether it's true or not, that it's circulating pretty heavily around the internet right now is sometimes a little shocking to see the extent of it. So that was digesting that, and I was thinking about just thinking about your perspectives and what you'd shared. So yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a growing learning experience for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate getting to talk about the sensitive stuff where most people it's like so polarized, but we won't. I think we got nuance to it that was healthy and helpful. Liam, thanks for the 10 euros. I appreciate that a lot,
sweet.
man. You're such a good supporter. Hope you're doing well over there in the UK. So, man, I'm gonna just kick us off into some of our topics because maybe the theme here, I'm gonna try to weave some stuff together, but would be holistic counseling, which is what you practice. And I think, and you know, from looking over your book, there's a lot of overlap where much of your modality kind of intuited my way through a lot of similar techniques, you know, and I think that there's a lot of value to how you practice. So there's a quote from your book I want to read to riff on to kick off, where you say, practicing holistic counseling is a most wonderful endeavor. Each case has such a beautiful tapestry of struggles and themes that have permeated the person's life. These patterns or threads that a belief system has entwined in a person's life are fascinating. It seems to be that each one could have a book written about it. To help reveal that scheme to the patient is a true privilege and honor. To then witness the positive healing effects it has in their life is rewarding beyond words. I love that. I often tell my clients, I'm like, thank you for doing this with me because I get to play the game of solving a puzzle, doing pattern recognition. It's my favorite game. So I totally vibe with your enthusiasm for what you're doing there.
Yeah, thanks. It's very rewarding. like I said, I will go into a day's practice, maybe feeling a little down, low energy, cobwebby, tired maybe, and I'll come out feeling really inspired, really rejuvenated. There's a process of healing that happens for the practitioner too, because we're sitting in a soup of consciousness. Like the deeper that you go with your patient / client, the more the healing power of nature flows with and through the practitioner. So it's like sitting in a bowl of soup of good healing energies. When we work in any true modality, any modality that works with the healing power of nature, that's what the practitioner would likely experience. So it's very,
I feel that too, man.
rewarding.
Like I can't go into a session where I'm just destroyed, but I can go in a little less than I can go in a little less than enthused maybe. And by the time we're starting, I'm all the way there. Like I have a whole sort of warm up I do I just use Qigong for that to kind of get myself in the bodily flow.
Yeah, I love Qigong.
Every time I've got this trigger thanks to this guy I used to interview a few times named Matt Powers, who wrote a book called Boundless Enthusiasm, where I basically just kind of like picture that dude and I'm like, enthusiasm. And then it trickles in because, that word is like in theos. It's like bringing the divine within. And there is a true healing or energetic boost. That's totally the compass for what you're doing in life. Podcasting is the same way. Like I had kind of a headache. I was kind of like underslept today, got a 6-week-old baby. Here we are kicking this off and I'm feeling bing, so it's what gives you a feeling of heightened energy. Go towards that, do more of that. That's what life is trying to tell you.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that helps us to remove our little self from the big self, anything that keeps you on the edge so that you're not self-absorbed. Because it's okay to focus on oneself. Like, I don't know if we ever talked about this, but one of my favorite axioms in Hermetic philosophy and alchemy is all truths are half-truths. So we may have talked about that.
Yeah. I've been on that since we talked about it. Like,
all
kind of put that back in my mind and I'm like, yeah, that's so important.
So important. So, so the half-truth there is, that it's very important for us to be able to let go of the self, the little self, the egoic self, the little me self. And that's a half truth. The other half being, its counterpart being, is it's very important to focus on yourself and not to abandon things and to be aware. So it's how to balance those two seemingly completely polar opposites is part of the fun and the dance and the mystery. When you get that right, I mean, ultimately, you completely let go of the self, ultimately, the little self, to surrender to the bigger self, right? But getting along the way, like it's this dance of pinging back and forth or just holding two simultaneously, the no self and then the little self together.
So let's talk a little bit about how you're uncovering these patterns in people's lives. Because I think there's more than way to do this as a mind-body psychosomatic healer. I'm going to give an example of a recent client I had where she was starting a new endeavor. She was actually a veterinarian and moving into a new line of work where she was going to be more like a naturopathic veterinarian with a new organization. And that entailed her working from home rather than in these chaotic ERs that she'd been working in for her whole life. So we uncovered through the different points of memory that her biofield were revealing to me based on, where my fork was picking up static and like what age that represents based on the distance from the body, that, for her experience in school was an inner city school where there's like, people getting shot in the hallways and stuff, like chaos was the norm, and other experiences that just kept reinforcing this comfortability with that kind of disorderly environment. And one of the things that was currently in her life causing her problems was this repetition of septic disaster at her house. So It was like a smelly problem that just wouldn't go away. It just kept coming back every time there was a step to solve it. It'd be like, no, actually, now this. And she's trying to work from home in this condition in her new job, which is what she really wants. And one of the funny things that we uncovered near the end, after we were sort of piecing together the elements of chaos that were compartmentalized in her energy field as sort of anchors towards expectation and comfort zone, was a time where she's like being babysat as a young child, wanting to do coloring, like, an self-expressive and relaxing activity, but being distracted by the babysitter's house having an evil smell in it.
Oh, funny.
So that ended up being like the anchor memory that was like, when all else fails, life can manifest an evil smell to reinforce the chaos pattern. And anyway, all that being said, like after we sort of cleared all that out and she realized, oh, I was asking for this sort of, her vitality levels improved a lot. She's emailed me about it. So that's kind of an example of some ways that the patterns can show up on my end. But like, how are you sifting through these or finding these? I want to know more about your way.
Right. So I'll be asking questions. So I mostly just ask questions. That's how the V dialogue works. like the tagline of the Beast Dialogue is where questions heal. And person will just start talking, and you'll start to hear certain words. Words will be repeated, and with the words are attached certain themes. So a person might talk about feeling frustrated, and they feel small, and then they play small, and then they learn that they had to play small. So when you see that it all coalesces, like for example, they might not come out and outwardly say, I feel small or I play small, but they're frustrated at work. So then I'll ask them about what makes them frustrated. And they'll say, well, you know, my boss is like this, like this, like this. And then it's like he doesn't even listen to a word I say. And they'll say, what's that like for you? Oh, it makes me feel like I don't matter. Well, and then I just keep asking for a deepening. I continue to deepen. And then the language will be, well, I feel small around my boss. Okay, so then I have that. Now that's not a thread yet. It's not a theme, but it's the start of a thread. It's not a theme. A theme, you see repetition.
It's a data point though.
Yeah, it's an important data point. Exactly. Like you put a little bit of a landmark there, right? And then talking about, well, my boyfriend, he makes me feel small. Okay, so now we have a theme. Those pattern points are sneaky and creative. Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because the ego is attached to that reality. And so it you know, we consciously want to heal, but then the subconscious mind is attached to those points because we actually come to believe that we need them to survive, because we, at a certain point in our lives, we did use them to survive. It's not that we needed to, but we certainly believed that we needed to. So we needed to survive a hostile environment, an environment without love, an environment where could be a high level of chaos, violence, poverty. So we develop these beliefs that to mitigate that place of chaos, to mitigate the wound in this place of chaos or lack of love or lack of attention. And that becomes like, and then we double down, we keep doubling down on this idea. Well, this is how reality is because I need to think these things in order to survive. So then we go to work with someone like Chance or like Moshe, and they start to get us towards these things that we want to take a look at. So consciously we say, yeah, we want to heal, but subconsciously it could become a battle. So there's a fine art in helping a person navigate what they're very attached to. Even though like maybe intellectually they could see, well, that pattern is not very good for me, but it really feels like I need it or I want it or I'm attached to it. So when we identify these patterns, that's the trail to follow right down to the bottom. Basically, that's what we're really looking for.
So another example from a recent client that I think is useful to bring into the equation too is how the subconscious or unconscious identification with certain patterns might be, or always really is reflecting in how we interface with the outer world. So I was working with this woman where she didn't really offer anything like, this is what I want to heal. It was more like, I got the vibe of like, I'm kind of just trying this out or like testing you type of thing. Like I do want, there are things maybe that I want to heal, but I don't even know where to start or I don't know really what ones would be the most important to prioritize. So just find whatever. That was kind of the vibe going in. And I do some biofield dowsing to start out a session. And I always get like, you know, and I'll draw a tarot card too, to give myself some extra context. And I always get like a top down theme of what the session's going to be about. And it was about this like kind of analytical testing. What is that? How is that showing up in her life? Why is it there? And what is it bringing a limitation to? And without being too verbose about it, what we uncovered were these different points in her life where her testing of her own limits of her own potential met with disappointment or like being unable to succeed or win in the context of what she was maybe biting off more than she could chew at early points in life, which created a tendency to maybe not explore the limits of her potential. And this is really common where people don't necessarily see this in themselves, but what they're afraid of isn't the unknown. It's finding out what is the boundary of what I'm capable of. I don't want to test that boundary because what if it's less than I hope it to be? So it's safer if I don't test that boundary.
Well, right? One thing that I find kind of ironic is, and I'm not sure if you were making a point to this, is that she actually came in testing you. Like she put the test to you because it's more like a projection of where she's at, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. And that's what we came across, like working through life experiences, was this tendency to kind of really scrutinize and look at people and situations sideways, looking for the threat or looking for the, not always necessarily threat, but just looking for the deficiency.
Yeah.
And this is the externalization of the internal state.
Right. It's easier just to see the fault or the deficiency in others rather than look at the struggle within myself.
Yeah. So you can always kind of invert whatever it is that your tendency towards the outside world is and realize that that's telling you something about how you treat yourself. But in this case, there was like a ramification to it of, so, you know, she felt like her intuitive abilities were limited. That's something that we uncovered through the process. And what happens when we're putting our mental faculties towards scrutinizing and looking for the flaw in people and situations is we're directing our intuitive ability into a narrow band. and what our intuition really wants to do is I'll tell you when the red flag is there. You don't have to go looking under every rock for the red flag. But if you're like focusing that way, it limits your intuition's ability to be intuition because it's like trying to be controlled. So
and that was afraid. It's like you're afraid. You're being overly vigilant and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because intuition's about trust. Like I trust myself that I'll get the mental notification when I need it and when it's helpful. But like when it's sort of like active imagination. When you try to control the vision, it evaporates. So that was one of the outcomes of this tuning was upgrading the intuition by changing the pattern of analytical testing of the world. And then, hope to hear some good things down the road about ways that's unsticking this person from some of the things in life that they're not that thrilled about doing, but just continue doing, like occupationally and all that. So
sure.
Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong. Maybe this person really likes their job, but there's ways, that's going to change the range of potentials for the person. So that's another good example. I wanted to talk about that because it's the, that inner unconscious projection onto our external world is so important and so hard to see without that other person who can kind of help you reveal the pattern that's right under your nose.
Yeah, usually the most acute present suffering is the itch or the pressure cooker that gets us to have to look at what our current karma is trying to show us about our blind spot. And, I wanted to just address a couple of things with what you said. Intuition is like the reason why it doesn't work to be hyper focused, right? Is because intuition is sort of the opposite of hyper focus. The IQ, the intelligence of the kind of rational conscious mind is the focus, the ability to focus and to organize thoughts and to access data quickly in an organized way. It's all very focused. And the intuition is sort of like, keeping your sails open wide and having a big wide open net to just receive what comes. So it's being very open. So like it, being really open with intuition and having to focus into a narrow focus doesn't really work unless the masculine IQ is working with the feminine, like the intuitive receptive intelligence. So the two can work together, but it sounds like the IQ in that instance was like controlling the situation because of this need for hypervigilance. Like vigilance like that is fear-based, and it will definitely kill the subtle intuition that needs to be very relaxed and very at peace to get. Like a very cluttered, anxious, busy mind won't be able to receive intuitive impulses because they're very subtle. They're gentle. When I like to liken them like to someone playing violin at a rock concert. You know, you're not going to hear the violin.
Yeah, and as soon as you're trying to overly scrutinize it, it can kind of evaporate too. There's a big trust. That's why I really like to advise people to try out shamanic journey work, because other than being a cool experience where you get to have sort of an imaginal realm trance-like state in a safe setting, this is where you maybe go online, look into how to do shamanic journey work, find a video or a audio track that has like a drum and rattle. You basically just close your eyes and let yourself kind of get taken into a visionary state. And this is great because even if you're not going into that with a certain intention or question, although you can actually query sort of your inner world with this practice, doing it, you don't have to do it forever, but like doing this for a while regularly, it retrains your ability to surf that fine line between controlling and interpreting, and what in shamanic teaching they call defocalizing the gaze, which is, or defocalizing your awareness. So that's bringing you into sort of a left brain, right brain, yin yang balance. And if you have some practice with that, it just sort of sets in, and then it works for you. It can continue working for you when you're not trying to do specific journey work. It's great.
It's great. I won't work with a patient unless they have a decided point of focus. The reason for that is, there's a bit of a lack of commitment on a person's part, but you don't have something that you're suffering from. If they're not suffering from anything, then they really don't need to have a healing session. So if they're having the point around which we keep our lighthouse focused on, and as soon as we start straying from that, and you need this focus, because people stray into the story. They avoid. They tell useless stories. They just like to talk. They like to be heard. None of these things are really purposeful to resolving a focused issue. And I always tell people to choose the issue that is most important for them in their life at that time, because then it makes for the most relevant session. So people might, put forward their comfortable issue. No, don't bring me your comfortable issue, the one that you think is a little cool, like you have a cool issue. Give me the one that hurts the most, that you have to be the most vulnerable to talk about, and that you are not that you should feel ashamed, but that you might feel ashamed about. Bring me your pain. And then that becomes the starting point and the anchor that helps to go deep. So I need to have that starting point with someone.
I see where you're coming from with that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think most profound sessions tend to be that we're working on a specific thing. Yeah. But there's also funny power of biofield tuning, or this may be something that I kind of have as an individual too, according to my wife, where I poke where it hurts. I don't know that it hurts there, but she, if there's like a spot that's sore on her or bruise, and I'm just going in to give some love, I just kind of rough up that spot that hurts without knowing that that's the spot that hurts, or even what I'm doing. There's like this I have like this magnetism to it. But biofield tuning is the same deal, where, the forks don't lie where the stuck energy is in the traumatic experience or the limiting belief. So
that's why I said you probably work differently, because you're working on the the etheric and the astral, and maybe, probably the higher levels too.
But if people come in and they have something in their mind, like, I wonder if he's going to find this trauma that happened to me, and they're really thinking about it, but they're like, they're like testing me about that. I never find. I never find those. And I think it's because it's not in the unconscious. It's in the conscious, and it's being purposely concealed. So it's not like anybody with a psychic modality or a tuning fork can just pull information out of you that you don't want them to have, right? You're safe in that regard. But yeah, I've had to start telling people like, hey, there's something on your mind and you're testing to see if I'm going to find it, and it matters. Don't do that. Just tell me now and save us both the trouble, because like you can hide stuff from the practitioner. Anybody can.
Yeah. And what's the point of that? I mean, you know, once you're going in, you might as well go all in. And then I do like that person to have the commitment. And with the commitment also comes an inherent permission, because the work that we're doing is very deep. It's very, very deep. And the person has to be clear about permission. So sometimes the wives will send their husbands, and I get the husband and he's there like, I'm like, hey, what are we working on? Well, the wife wants me to work with you. I'm like, well, do you want to work with me? I don't know. She wants me to work with you. I won't work with a person like that unless they want to work with me. They have to have this sort of permission / commitment. Otherwise, it's spinning wheels. And because what I do is all choice based. Really, the like at the bottom when the pattern is revealed, we get to a core belief. I always put it to the table like, well, do you want to keep living this way? And that puts it into the person's core as a question of choice. Do you want to live this way? Is this true for you? And if the person is still there because they're kind of reluctantly there because their wife sent them, then it just doesn't work. So I need that commitment, and I need the clear direction, right? Because these are the things that are required for the work that I do. I could see like a more hands-on-y kind of stuff where you're just consulting the body, you're consulting the auric field. You're not necessarily moving through the conscious mind and, you know, getting to the unconscious through the conscious. That's what I do. So I need those elements in place for sure.
And that's part of that is the energetic investment of them being the ones that are paying for their session too. Like,
yeah, right.
There's definitely a sweet spot with how much a practitioner charges, where the instinct is like, I just want to help people. You know, it feels weird to ask for money for something that somebody kind of needs and all that. But there's a real balance there where if you, as the practitioner, shortchange what you need for your work and what your work is like truly worth, it shortchanges the person's experience. You know, it cheapens their experience. There's like something about that exchange is really important, that people will pay for a session and they'll start actually having results occurring before we even work together. And like maybe there's a month between when they pay and when they're able to get off my calendar. And when we get there, they're like, yeah, all this stuff started happening towards the, improvement and the realizations around the problem I want to work on. And I always tell them that's because you made the choice to do it. You made the choice and you made the investment. And the most important aspect of healing is that you make the choice that it's what you want and that you're doing it. And then things start to arrange themselves to support that choice.
Yeah, you got to have some skin in the game. You know, I've worked now for 25 years. And through those 25 years, there have been some opportunities for me to do exchanges with people. Now, practitioner is one thing, but barter has never worked for me. I've bartered for people. I bartered with artists. I bartered with people for food. One person there, I forget what they had, a product. I never ended up getting anything from the person. They never gave me the thing that they offered, and they really weren't invested in the healing. They were not invested. Like, money is just currency, right? It's just an exchange. I think maybe there was a time when a healer wouldn't ask for money, and maybe they were supported by their community and they didn't need to pay the rent and all that stuff. But there's like the world that we live in now, especially in America, like everything costs a lot of money. Like, so it makes sense, unless you're like living in a monastery and you have no responsibilities to a family, or it makes sense to ask for money as an exchange. because you're giving something of value and the person is giving you something that they value, and that's the exchange. Super important.
I've heard in the East that they have doctors on like a monthly retainer sometimes, where the doctor gets paid the same amount every month, but if grandma is sick and the doctor's not helping, the doctor's not getting paid that month. So it's like they're
sounds like China. Sounds like traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah, so the impetus is on the doctor to keep everyone well rather than to keep them coming back for more visits, which that's an interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, that would suck during a real pandemic, you know, when everybody gets sick. But that's a joke, because that practitioner, if they're good, they should be, you know, working with those people as individuals and keeping their Wei Qi, you know, their defensive Qi strong and their lung Qi strong and all that good stuff. So yeah, definitely, man. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I don't know about all the categories of Qi. I know of some of them, but I've never heard of that one. The
Wei Qi. Wei Qi.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Qi. Yeah, it's defensive Qi. It's sort of it's on the surface of the body during the day, and at 11 p.m. it tucks itself to sleep. So it goes into the body, and it's no longer defending. So in the traditional Chinese medicine philosophy, the idea is that you have to like go to bed before 11, tuck yourself in, you know, protect yourself from all the external pathogens, because that's when you're most susceptible to be penetrated by the pathogens.
So that's the gallbladder in Chinese medicine, right? 11 to 1?
At 11 o'clock. Yeah, it might be, but the Wei Qi is actually ruled or governed by the lungs. So I don't know exactly why it's at 11, like for the time, like that circulation of time. I don't know if it exactly relates to the gallbladder per se, more to the lungs. It's just when it goes into the body. So it's good to go to bed before 11. And it's interesting, you know, a traditional Chinese medicine, I find it fascinating. I really loved it when I studied in naturopathic medicine. And I didn't pursue it.
If I was going to go to school for something ever again, it would be just to learn more about TCM.
I just love it. It's so interesting. And I really like my teacher, Harold. He was a funny guy, very knowledgeable. And he had an answer to a lot of the questions that, well, at least I asked, that I was curious about. And what I find interesting about that medicine is that the pathogens are not viruses, bacteria, fungi. They are damp, cold wind. You know, there's the elements are what are the pathogens. And you know, when you go outside, let's say your hair's wet and you get chills, you should never get chills. Like, it's okay to go outside and do a Wim Hof dive into ice cold water, but you shouldn't be chilled when you do that. You should be full of fire. And so if you get chilled, you're getting penetrated by cold, and that's a pathogen. You don't want
There's something to that, because sometimes I can be out in very cold weather, barefoot, no shirt or very light jacket, and I feel very secure and like I have this boundary to it. And then other times I can be more bundled up and it's like going through me.
Oh yeah.
And I always feel like my consciousness is weaker if I'm cold. And I'm a very fire oriented person in, you know, general.
Yeah.
Or, you know, multiple main astrological signs being fire. So something to that to me, like if my fire goes out, I'm useless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's a sign, like, you might not sleep enough. That could weaken your fire, weaken your defensive chi. You could be eating crappy food that could weaken it momentarily, or you could be kind of fighting with something already. Like I'm still getting over this pneumonia that's kind of circulating all around. My kids had it, and everybody in this community has it. The walking pneumonia. So I could feel my chi is a little low. And when I'm going outside, I feel cold. So I'll wrap up a little more, go to bed a little earlier, just, you know, following along with what I'm feeling. Nice daddy mug there. Nice daddy mug. That's great. That one came quick.
Actually, this is me with my nephew, but it's like I'm practicing to be a daddy. It's from like last year, but I knew it was going to be like assumed that it's my dad mug, but I'm going to pretend it is.
Sure.
You know, I love that nephew like his son.
It's your nurturing dad energy. That's cool. Oh yeah, and I wanted to say one other thing about TCM. The food, that the nourishment from the food also doesn't come from its like constituents, its nutritive value, like from a sort of biochemical viewpoint. It's from the taste, which is highly interesting because that is what nourishes the five elemental energies inside of us, are these tastes. So it's an energetic principle that invigorates the five elements, and
It's
the five
interesting because
elements.
taste is recognized by consciousness. It's like a form of consciousness. It's a feeling.
Yeah, it's more primitive. It's really more like taste is part of the five senses, and that's what the Chinese discovered is what's nourishing us. So too much of a taste, too much, like if you're eating too many sweets, then you're overwhelming the spleen. If you have too many, not enough, or too much spice can injure the lungs, and salt and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, pretty cool stuff. I really like traditional Chinese medicine, and it dovetails very well with understanding of yoga and the bodies, the different bodies that we inhabit, and the different elements that come from the five senses. Like there's five forms of prana, just like the five forms of chi. They emanate from those five tastes. It's not just from the five tastes, it's from the five senses. The senses and the tastes also break up in the five energies, elements. So do the other senses. So it's pretty interesting how it all works. It's like syncretism in a way, like holistic syncretism.
The great gentleman, Richard Bonner from
Doc
Pennsylvania.
Moshe, question to you. Are there foods, I'm fond of organic spicy peppers, that'll keep the inner fires burning? Yeah, sure. I mean, foods that are hot are generally good, but any good food will keep the inner fires burning. Like to have a balanced for you diet is what keeps your inner fires burning. But certainly cayenne pepper is like a classic example, which I like in terms of, it's like a fiery energy, right? So I'm a bit more of like an individual person. Like I like to address each person per their individual needs rather than like throw out generalized stuff. But yangi foods like eating meat will keep you pretty fiery. It's very yang. Like yang energies are fiery energies, and it's sort of like the same astrologically. The fire energies are very yang. So meat does that. Vegetables are cooling.
It kind of makes sense because to eat meat, you're gonna, add some fire to it before you eat it, probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure, you could. Yeah, it's true, but it also has to do with like in the alchemical worlds. So anima is the energy that governs the word animal, right? Because an animal is anima. It means it's animated. What animates it is a fiery energy. It's autonomous. It moves around. So it has an active energy principle. Whereas the plants are fixed. They're not fixed. Like some of them can move and open up their leaves, but they're not walking around like animals. They're not flying. So animals, by their very nature, have a more fiery energy to them. So by consuming them with great gratitude and presence of their sacrifice and prayer, I like to do that over the food. You basically are getting quite a bit of fiery energy. And when people are just eating plant-based diets, like it does work for some people better than others, but some people, generally speaking, require not just a plant-based diet. And I've seen people like they're just very damp. They get very cold and very damp, and they don't have much like pizzazz. They have trouble concentrating. They get unfocused. And
it worked for me for a good 5 years, and then all of a sudden I no longer could get stronger. It was like my body ran out of some reserve or something.
Interesting.
And no matter what I did in the gym, even though I would see like on Instagram, vegan bodybuilder, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and I was trying to eat pretty balanced and get the macronutrients properly out of the vegan diet, but just hit a wall. No matter what
Yeah.
I did, I could not get any stronger. So
Yeah, well, there's also there was this strong, I don't know if it's still happening, but there was this like raw food fad that happened like, I'd say like between 10 to 20 years ago, maybe 5 to 20 years ago. And
it's still
it was,
rippling.
yeah, it's still rippling. The raw food diet, like it almost became like a raw religion, right? I don't know if you heard that expression, like raw religious. So people were externalizing energies into their food. They were putting their evolution into what they were eating. And that's sort of like a very myopic view that it's not what you like. It's even, there's a quote in the Bible that's like, it's not what you put into your body that makes you what you are. I'm totally killing this quote right now. I think it's in the Gospel of Thomas, maybe. I think it's the words of Peter. Anyway, basically, it's not what you eat. It's certainly not. It's good to go raw sometimes. I think it's great. Maybe it works for you. You feel great. Super. But to just be raw and like there was so much energy and emphasis on that. There was some externalization to the food as the path to the divine. So it was a little bit misplaced in my perception in some communities.
Why I avoid the topic in all the things I will bring on the show related to holistic health and mind body healing, I kind of avoid the topic of diet intentionally, because what I found is that all the information about diet that you can find, there's an equally convincing and voluminous amount of contradictory evidence. So
exactly, I'm so glad you said that, because diet has been a point of mild irritation for me because of that very phenomenon. These things become a fad. Like I've been practicing now. I've been studying and practicing for close to 30 years. So since I got into the field, I've seen so many fads come and go. The latest science, the latest ideas about fats and butter and dairy and meat and not meat and this. And there's so much like bouncing around. It's so important for a person to, learn what's out there, but then to find what works for you, what you enjoy, what makes you feel good. What comes out of one is what defiles them, not the food that goes in. That Jesus fellow. Thank you, Rick.
Rick's
perfect.
Awesome. What I found in, what really turned my perspective around on the diet question was coming across Eileen McCusick's work and the biofield anatomy and tuning. And one of the things that I remember reading in her books or hearing her talk about more than once, I'm sure, was how if we have our energy field in coherence, then it shouldn't really matter what we eat. Our body should be able to turn something into its constituent components and also synthesize those components into other components that the body needs that it might lack, if it's got the energy and the coherence to do it. That doesn't mean just intentionally eat a bunch of poisonous stuff, because that will put a strain on your, there's more work to do, and eventually you might not have the energy to do all that work. But so it's not like eat poison, but more or less, if you get yourself into electrical coherence, you can kind of just eat what you want for the most part.
I think there's a general principle in diet and nutrition where if you're generally eating well, then you could stray, the word is cheat. I'm sure you've heard the word cheat. You could have a day here of debauch, a day here of not eating well, not eating enough here, eating too much there. So if generally you're eating well and you're eating good foods, then you're fine.
What sealed it for me was my lifelong dairy allergy being cured by finding the related unprocessed and unexpressed frustration energy at my sacral level over my stomach. Like
Nice.
that was what was causing the dairy allergy.
There you go.
And so went from being unable to consume dairy without have like for my whole life I thought I had allergies because that's what the doctors told me. Oh yeah, you're just we'll do these tests. They prick you with the stuff, and they're like, yeah, every plant and animal known to man you're allergic to. So come get allergy shots once a week. And for years in my 20s, I was getting these shots that would leave these golf ball sized welts on my arm before I knew anything. You know, I was just trusting the system.
Right.
And I came across like essential oils. Totally one of the early things you might find that you could consider holistic. And I started using these oils on the shot injection spots just because it made the swelling not so bad. And the nurses were like, you know, majorly obese, unhealthy people themselves should be a clue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
they didn't even know what essential oils were. And at that point, I was like, you know, I don't think I need this. And I changed my diet, went vegan for a few years, and that worked for me to avoid the allergies. But it wasn't until later when I discovered tuning and working with that sacral frustration energy that I was able to bring dairy back in with no problems.
That's cool.
But that was it.
Definitely
That's
gotten
for
robust. Me. I've also gotten robust through the years. Things I couldn't tolerate before, I can now. I had this amazing case of a gentleman. When I was in Montreal, it's when I started my practice. It was only like into practice a year or two, and he was a big pharma rep, and he came from Toronto to work in Montreal, and he developed when he was in Montreal ulcerative colitis. And I was like, well, that's funny. You know, like we're not in the business of handing out like ulcerative colitis. Welcome to Montreal. Would you reach into this basket and choose a disease of your choosing? You know, oh, ulcerative colitis. All right, here we go. And like, because I told him the spiel that the way I work, and he was like, oh, I got nothing going on mentally, emotionally. So I said, well, just give it a chance, okay? Give it a chance. So he said, all right. And we did a little bit of investigation, and within about 20 to 30 minutes, he was clear on what his problem was. And what had happened was he had moved from Toronto. He left a very close group of friends, his guy friends, and they would party and get together. And he felt like they were forgetting him, and he felt forgotten, and it was eating him up alive, eating him up. That's how it felt emotionally to him. And ulcerative colitis, you know, you got ulcers in your colon, and that was the expression at the body level of him feeling eaten, like it was eating him up. So he had researched and done a lot of research on the best foods to eat. He was eating everything correctly. He was having terrible bloody stools, mucousy stools when he was in Montreal, and he would go back to Toronto. He would hang out with his friends. He'd eat pizza and hot dogs, smoke cigarettes, do cocaine, drink beer. All of his symptoms were gone. And then he'd go back to Montreal, eat everything pristine again, and all his symptoms would return. It shows you that it really, when we work in the mental and emotional field, the importance of nutrition comes down a notch or two. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not as important. Some people really, you know, they swear by nutrition. It's all about nutrition. And for me, that's a person who's not dealing with their issues, and they're relying on the food as a form of controlling their health. So they themselves are in some kind of control. So they're using food as an extension of their being in control, need to be in control. And you know, when
it's tricky because you want to encourage people to eat healthy foods.
Yeah.
Because and at the end of the day, the healthy stuff tastes better too. Like it's more enjoyable once you cross the hurdle. But on the other hand, like when you're in that control drama, as you're talking about, people are actually often living in a state of terror of like, what if something GMO got into my meal today, and like, oh no.
Right, exactly.
It's like the fear is in this like limiting of what potentially could be okay. So it's not about, like sort of a general like guideline for life is it's not about controlling all outcomes. It's about being like, whatever happens, you'd be okay with. It's like, as a microcosm, your relationship, say with your wife or your husband, it's not about, I have to have this person in my life or my life will be over. It's about, I could take it or leave it, but every day I'm choosing to take it.
Right.
Like I would be fine without it. And I know that. So I'm continually choosing that I do want it rather than like, I have to have it.
Very Khalil Gibran wisdom philosophy.
Dude, I love Khalil.
Yeah, that's great. Like the way what he talks about with relationships, it's exactly that. Basically, if anybody draws a hard line on anything, that's exactly where they need to go to undraw the hard line. And usually they draw a hard line as a means of armoring against their vulnerability and their woundedness. So like something will happen to someone, they'll get abandoned. They'll be put down in front of a group and embarrassed. Whatever happens, they'll say, I will never let that happen again. So they get into a place of control. A, they believe they can control the outcome. B, they want to control the outcome. And C, they will not allow it to happen. So there's a whole bunch of energy, a whole bunch of massive amounts of energy. We're talking bucket loads and mountain fulls of energy that they're putting into their subconscious field to be always on watch. Don't let this thing happen. Can't go there. Don't even want to talk about it. Don't want to feel it. Keeping it all off of that turf. They're in a pure state of control. And
so it's like there's a wall here and they're holding this wall up and trying to push with all their might to hold this wall up, not realizing that all the effort they're holding this wall up with is creating an equal amount of external on the other side of the wall push, like trying to push the wall down. So they're boomeranging the unconscious, you could say, is boomeranging that shadow into their external world, trying to penetrate that defense at every turn.
Absolutely. And it's like the misperception of people that went gung-ho crazy for the movie The Secret and the philosophy of The Secret. Like, you don't go in your consciousness into the negative, because then you're feeding it. But if you actually say that and you're avoiding going into the negative, you're actually feeding the negative. You're being in relationship to it. Again, everything that we're saying here, we got to recognize there's half truths involved. There's half truths involved. So it's good to be positive, but then it's not just about being positive. The alchemical union of opposites is between the sun and the moon rules the dark places of the world. The unconscious, the dark, the nighttime. The night creatures come out at night. The day creatures are out during the day. So we need to balance both of these, because really we are a child of the product of the sun and the moon. That's where the Christ lives, to use that model reality. That's where the Tao lives. And so we really want to balance between the positive sunny side of life and the dark and heavy shit that we carry and that's there. So I'm a big advocate for facing, diving in, going there, talking about it, feeling it. It's exactly the opposite of the fear fad around facing the negative that people got. It's the opposite of that. It's what's healing. It makes you a strong person. It makes you a real person, versus like you're so gung-ho on the positive that there's this negative raging inside of the person, but they're so disconnected. So they split themselves off from what they're carrying. And that's the kind of person that starts to project darkness onto people. That person's negative. That person's negative. They're evil. They're bad, because they're not looking at their own evil, their own darkness.
Michael Tsarion calls them smiling depressives. So, like he'll point out this sort of common, ubiquitous, like profile picture style of facial expression where they're like,
yeah.
but on the inside, they're like, horribly depressed and disfigured while they're just trying to project this external perfection and positivity and Apollonian lightness.
Yeah.
While at the same time, what's really happening is they're like, that facial expression is like a primate submission expression or fear expression, you know, and they become become submissive to those dark forces that are externalized through the repression of their shadow. They become the first ones to go along with the quote unquote new normal. And like, I did it. I don't want to kill grandma, so I took my shot, etc. Exactly. And what I like to tell people about, like, this I learned just directly from my practice with biofield tuning and like having to go through this myself in my many relationships before I solved it and could actually land on a life partner, which is the first step that we come to when we think about boundaries against negative energy or negative people is that we got to reject it. We got to insulate ourselves from it. We got to cut out the negative people from our life. And that's actually just like the first step. That doesn't actually get you to a place of health at all. And what I usually bring people to in a tuning session is find a way to help them integrate the reality of boundaries, which is that accepting is protecting. Accepting the negative energy as being okay, that it's like that, is what protects you from it. So like you've got a family member or a friend, they're depressed or they're angry, and you're like, I can't be around them because of their bad vibes. Right. You're literally admitting and opening yourself up to be vulnerable to the negative energy. Right. But when you accept and you're like, it's okay that you feel that way. Yeah. It's okay that you feel that way.
And that's love.
Now you're protected.
That's actually a form of love. Like if you can't be around the negative, you separate yourself from it. That's you're only comfortable in the sunny side of love. And that's not real love, because love itself has a dark and a bright side. There's a tough love. There's a gentle, compassionate, giving love. There's a no.
Read the Symposium. Yes. Read Plato's Symposium. You get the full gamut of love's light and dark sides. Just people out there, read that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like that. I like that a lot. You know, I wanted to address something you said about the word holistic. I reserve, I don't own the term, but I do have a specific definition of it for myself. And when I teach, for me, the word holistic means it's talking about the whole. So there's some people that think holistic medicine is, I'm using, I change my diet and I do homeopathic remedies for my digestive system and like my joints. And then I use counseling for my psyche, and I do massage therapy, and then that's a whole. But for me, what the philosophy that really encompasses holism is the understanding that the body is a reflection of what's going on in the mind. So a holistic picture of a person is that you see the pathology, you see the problem in the body, then you see what emotions are blocked, and then you go deeper and you recognize what belief is there. And so the holism there is mind, emotion, body, and also there's the vital force, the etheric, that's in between the emotional field and the body. That's also been altered, and that is where the chi flows and the chakras nurture and everything.
Can I bring up this graphic from your book?
Well, yeah, sure. That'd be fine. Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah, because then you can like continue explaining what you're explaining, but go through this.
Right on.
Because this was such a cool graphic.
Yeah. So I was inspired by Barbara Brennan. Where we see the four worlds here, and there's an alteration to this graphic as well. But let's keep it at this level right now. So basically, the disease begins not at the soul level. The soul is beyond illness. I think maybe if you really screw up and like sign your soul to the devil or something for exchange for money or power or fame, maybe you're screwing shit up there, but I don't think the soul can be touched. It's truly beyond the realms of free will. So the mind is where illness can begin, and it begins with a false premise, a false perception of reality, which is a choice, because a false perception of reality doesn't happen without choice, because it's false. So you have to be choosing to believe that thing, because it's not natural. Now, that doesn't mean that you're consciously choosing it. You could be subconsciously or unconsciously choosing it, but nevertheless, there is a choice there. And because it's a false choice, the energy principle of this cascade of reality. So in the three treasures in TCM, you see in the middle there, the Shen, nurtures and governs the Qi. The Qi nurtures and governs the Jing, or the blood. So when there's a bright mind, and the Shen is sort of a principle of this level of reality, then there's a flow of Qi. And when there's a flow of Qi, there's a flow of Jing and blood, and everybody's good. Everybody's good. We're happy. But when there's something that blocks the flow of Shen, and this is where a false belief will block the flow of Shen, because the person is using their will to hold on to a false principle. That in and of itself brings a negative energy to the person's reality, which blocks Shen. And that blocks the flow of Qi. And when the flow of Qi is affected, you get emotional problems. And then when the flow of blood and Jing is affected, then you have problems at the body level. So this also represents the four worlds in Kabbalah, and also in in yoga. There's something known as the five bodies, and I could explain how that breaks down.
Can I pause you and then we go into that?
Yeah, sure.
I just thought it's interesting, this concept of Shen in TCM, which is that's like the consciousness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you see, it's related to soul, but it's not quite soul. It's a very high level of energy that you could see in a person's eyes. When a person has good Shen, then their eyes radiate light. And when their Shen is very diminished, they have a dullness behind their eyes, that you won't see that light shining, basically.
That's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
That is a real thing. Like, you can gauge that in yourself and, pretend like it is or isn't obvious to everybody that your Shen's weak. But it's interesting how in our society we don't have that concept in a ubiquitous way. So we might just say we're tired or something. But got to keep that, that Shen glow and the light in your eyes. That should be our number one clue as to whether or not what we've been doing is good for us. But I wanted to show the Shen in Egyptian hieroglyphics real quick. It's called a Shen ring. I don't know if there's a relationship, but let's see if I can zoom this in close enough. Check out this symbol here. It's
looks like Horus, like a falcon. Is that a falcon?
Well, that's on the back. There's a Shen ring in its grasp, but the sign is this circle with a line under it. That is such a perfect, almost one-to-one symbolically relationship to the idea of consciousness, because it's the one and the zero. It's the circle in the line. It's the pole in the hole.
That's it. That's cool. Sometimes things are related. They do have a relationship, and sometimes it's just they don't have a relationship. So I'm not really. I like the symbol. It makes sense for sure. Yeah,
I'm just I'm not claiming a relationship other than I think that there's something in our, there's ancient priesthoods like the Sumerians that had a word for it, Lumashi, which is the writing between the lines or the punning of the divine. That when one of the ways that God speaks to us is through these synchronicities or word plays between different languages or systems or cultures, where we can draw these parallels. We can't make a definitive claim about it, but it's it's like the cosmic wink,
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's definitely bridges there. There's 100% bridges. I just sometimes see people in podcasts, and maybe they're doing these little videos where they have connectionitis. That's what I call it.
I've been guilty of that. I'm working
yeah,
on it.
yeah. Me
I'm
too. Me
recovering.
too. I've been guilty of that too. I have to say, I don't want to point too many fingers, but it like connectionitis is easy to do. Like you just make a connection between everything. I like to use this classic example because it's a really extreme example of it. So basically, this person was trying to establish in their video that the Jews were responsible for starting the Vikings, and the reason for that is because there were 12 kings for the 12 tribes of Israel. 6 of them went to like Scandinavia. 6 is the
right.
Roman numeral
VI.
5 and 1.
VI kings.
PI 6 king, right? So that's connectionitis right there. No, sorry.
Yeah, like let's try some real philology before you draw. Yeah. We call
Yeah.
it schizophrenia, named after my regular co-host on Vibe Rant, Slick Dissident. The connectionitis. I call it schizophrenia. He wouldn't mind me making fun of him like that. He's not here to
Yeah. Right on.
Probably pop in the
Exactly.
chat right now.
I got you. That's it. So anyway, so we talked about that. That's good.
So you're getting into the 4 worlds of Kabbalah, and that's like where that's the gravy. I want to know like the Kabbalah relationship to the body, because mostly what I know of Kabbalism is in a more abstract realm of these qualities of the Sephiroth, but not necessarily how they pertain to a man or the cosmic man.
Right. Well, as I understand it, the 4 worlds are always everywhere around us at all times. So right now we're interacting a lot with the physical world. We're in our physical body. I'm looking at you through this physical device, and that's the world of asiya. It means the world of action. In the yogic tradition, the body itself is called Anamaya Kosha, which the Maya Kosha means Maya means illusion. Kosha means like a sheath or a body. Ana means food. So it's actually the food body. Our body's made out of food, which makes sense. Like that's why we grow, because we eat food. I think that's hilarious. And it's not necessarily defining food, because some people can still live in their bodies and not eat physical food. They're eating pranic food, they're eating air food, they're eating sun food. So there's different kinds of food, but generally speaking, most people on earth need food. And then, so when we go to bed, so the world of this world of the physical is governed largely by the sun. And when we're up, we're in our physical body and we're conscious, we're using the conscious mind. The conscious mind has a lot to do with the sun. So when we go to bed at night, we slip into the astral world. Our consciousness is now in the astral. Whereas a moment ago, when we were awake, it was in this realm. But really, simultaneously, these things are happening at the same time. And a master is aware of what's going on their subconscious level. Like reality has become revealed to them, and the light of consciousness shines everywhere. So they're aware of the subconscious and they're aware of the conscious. Now, when you go to bed and you go to sleep, if you have dreams, if you're dreaming, you're in the astral plane. That's the second world in Kabbalah. It's known as the world of Yetzirah. And there's another world in sleep that can happen where we go so deep. I consider this the world where there's a marriage of the conscious with the subconscious, the sun and the moon, and you slip into a deeper world, which is a higher world vibrationally, and that's the world of Bria, which is the causal plane. The causal plane is higher than the astral, which is higher than the physical, and vibrationally higher. And the higher and higher we go, the more the reality becomes like the true reality, which is in the world of Atzilut. And Atzilut, this is a bit of a false way of depicting it, because there's no body there. It's
Can
just
I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, let me just finish that one thought.
Sure.
There's no body there. In the world of soul, it's just pure beingness. It's pure consciousness. It is, was, and will always be. It's beyond space and time. There's no space and time there. There's nothing created. It is just pure consciousness, pure isness. That is the world of Atzilut, and that's the world of the there's no body name for it in the five worlds of yoga. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So I know that when we say higher, it can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So when we're saying like the world of Yetzirah is higher than Asiya, body is lower than emotions, we're not talking about up and down so much as like superior, inferior. And would you say that like up is in and out is down?
Yes. There's a cohesiveness. It's going closer to the center of reality. And it's not really localized per se. It has to do with vibrational reality too. So the fields of the chakras, like the chakras and the flow of chi through the acupuncture meridians, that's happening in the etheric, which is also a part of the subtle body. So
which one of these worlds is life force energy part of?
Life force energy. Okay. So this is what I mean. Like I have another version of this diagram where I compare the 5 worlds. Okay. So I'll just do it right now. So there's 5 in yoga. There's 5 bodies, and those 5 bodies are also considered 3 bodies. Okay. So let me see if I could do this here. So the 5 bodies and the 3 bodies are exactly the same thing, but in the 3 body model, these 3 bodies that are part of the subtle body are all together as one in the astral. So you have physical, astral, and then causal. And those are the bodies that we're in. But then if we split up the subtle body, this is called, so it's physical, subtle, and then causal. The subtle body is made up of 3 bodies. There's the pranamaya kosha, which is the vital body. This is the vital force. Then there's the manomaya kosha, which is considered like the subconscious mind. It's called the lower mind. But it's also very emotional. It has a lot to do with emotion. And this is the place where we get stuck. So even though belief systems start here in Vijnanamaya kosha, they're stored in the subconscious here. And this is the thing that holds on for control and for survival. This is the survival brain. This is the brain, the philosophical brain. This is the brain that you could use and talk shit about yourself and hate yourself or heal yourself. There's this Israeli healer. His name is, I think his name is Cohen, something Cohen. Shit, I forget right now, but he has a book. You can find his name. It's The Body is the Healer. The mind is the healer. The mind is the killer. So this mind, Vijnana Maya Kosha, can be the healer or the killer. It could be that which is in obeisance of the higher world, or it could be the one that fights. It could be in delusion, or it could be in reality. So this is where things originate from. Vijnana Maya Kosha, which is the intellect, the higher intellect. And then there's the causal body. So the causal body and the physical body are same for both models, right? If we're looking at the three body model, we got physical, subtle, causal, or the 5 body model, we got physical, vital, lower mind, emotion, stuckness world, or liberation. And we got philosophical mind, which could go either way. It swings both ways. And then we got the causal body. So that's the 5 body, 3 body, different model. Same thing though. Same thing.
I like it. The hand prop was really helpful. Actually.
Yeah. The hand prop is helpful. I agree. I totally agree.
Okay, so there's something I like to say, and it's kind of like a catchphrase, and without fleshing it out in nuance, it might not hit right like anything else. But I like to say that life force energy is a singularity. and is universal. And by that, I'm referring to that which animates our body vessel, not necessarily simply like the material action of exchanging one molecule for another in a fuel type sense to power, you know, musculature, you know, clenching and releasing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, I guess more of like the vital force. I'm referring to the subtle life force energy. And it's my personal like opinion based on what I've observed and working with people and in myself that the life force, this primary life force energy is on some level, you could call it higher or superior or primary to like before physicality.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
this is all something I've
It's
come.
the template of. It's the template of like Barbara Brennan. You know Barbara Brennan, Hands of Light fame. She was a former NASA scientist. She's very like has very developed psychic mediumship. Like what do you call that when somebody could see medical intuitive? Very very powerful
Okay.
medical intuitive. She wrote a couple of books, Light Emerging, and Hands of Light. Hands of Light is the first one, Light Emerging is the second. So when she draws the etheric, the vital body, it's a template within which the physical body grows within, so that it gets its higher energy, it gets its directives, its blueprint from the vital energy. Exactly what you're saying.
Okay. That's that works for me because like that's part of how I've been able to, I don't know, explain or conceive of why when I'm doing what is essentially a type of vibrational healing using tuning forks, it doesn't actually matter that the person is in the same room or state or even country as me, and it doesn't even matter if they can hear the forks. So
Right.
I actually kind of equate this life force energy on some level to like the mind or the soul of the world that all of
Yes.
the other mind and soul is portioned out of. Like there's so how I think of it is that the life force energy in this body vessel is like a fractal singularity, meaning no matter the vitality or the compartmentalization of a particular body vessel that is a like a home of the life force itself is pure, intact, and infinite.
That's okay. So I think there's some definition here that might be helpful.
Please, yeah, I'd like
I
to
think what
get
you're
my
talking about is getting into the causal plane.
okay.
Like as I understand the causal plane, so that's the world of Bria, and we'll talk about it. That's the heaven of heaven. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay, yeah, I want to know about that.
It's one of my favorite topics. I love this topic so much. The heaven of heaven. Um, we'll talk about that in a minute. If we forget, like bring us back. Or
Oh, I've I've had
somebody.
it on my mind this whole time. We'll go
All
there.
right. Okay, great. So you ever see like the movie The Incredibles? There's this one of the supers can make a hole in reality, and then she makes a hole somewhere else, and she could like punch you from like across the room, or she'll throw a ball and then open up a hole and it hits you in the head. So when something can move spontaneously beyond the speed of light, it spontaneously responds to intention. That is the causal reality. It's beyond space and time. It's in modern terms, it's regarded as the 0 point field. Scalar waves come from the causal. So, like if you there's some experiments where people like took a couple of fish out of a school of fish and they separated them by like ridiculous amounts in the ocean, and they observed the fish still spontaneously moving like at the same time. So they're obviously connected by some consciousness that's beyond the physical, because you can't, like, there's no lag. It's not like, okay, these guys are moving and then these guys are taking the signal and they're following. They're moving as one. There's a hive mentality there.
Is this like the quantum spooky action at a distance thing?
Yes. Quantum spooky action, I think, is dealing at the causal level. So, and again, remember, we are ultimately who we really are is God consciousness. That's even beyond the causal. The causal is such a high level, but there's even something beyond that. And that is the thing that is, was, and will always be, and is not created. The causal has a form of being created. So that's where the child reality lives, because the child is created by the father and the mother who are unified so much that,
so like, it's like the difference between the infinite and indefinite. Like an indefinite is still, it's limitless within parameters. Like it's limitless on a certain spectrum, but the infinite has no spectrum or parameter that could be measured in the first place.
Exactly. It's beyond all definition. It's beyond all manifestation. It's pre-manifestation. And I think there's something special about that, because ultimately we can master all of the bodies to ultimate reunion with the one. And so like the first, like when a soul is born and we're young and like we make all the mistakes that a young soul does, like we get really attached to like shiny objects and like desires and stuff. And then as we evolve, we detach, and then a master of this earth plane will not come back anymore unless they want to, but they don't have to. They're not stuck in this painful dukkha karmic life cycle. So they're gonna go into the astral, and they're gonna work at the astral level to master astral karma. When a person dies here, they go to heaven. Heaven is the astral. But when they're at the level of the astral and they die in the astral, they go to the causal. The causal is the heaven of heaven. Relative to this space where we are right now, the astral is heavenly, because a lot of the suffering that we have is because we're in this body. The body hurts, it aches. You know, you get a fever, you get headaches. The emotional field is so heavy and dense on planet Earth that what we believe about ourselves creates an emotional field, which we really believe is real, because we believe it and then we feel the thing that we believe. So it doubles down on itself and it seems like reality. So this is a world of very heavy suffering, because the illusion seems real and it feels real. But the causal doesn't have that. The causal is beyond that kind of level of reality. We can still, I think there's still suffering there, but it's very different than suffering here. It's more like trying on things to feel suffering. But let's say a master masters this world and they're like free from the karma, because what brings them back is desire. You desire to be, maybe it's sex. You don't want the flesh. You want the flesh. So that brings you back. Or you want respect, or you want to be the head of a CEO and be able to boss people around. So some kind of desire is bringing you back, pulls you back. And then you suffer because of your desire. Desire brings suffering. And then you get mastered, yay, and you evolve past this world. Now you shed the physical reality behind you, the material anamaya kosha, the food body is no more for you, unless you decide to come back, which is voluntary, probably. So then you're in the astral, and now you work on your astral karma, but then you die in the astral and you go to heaven. Right? Because when we die and when we're in this cycle of reality, we go to heaven. Ideally, you're not like a total asshole on earth and you have to go and deal with some deep, heavy shit in low vibrational reality in the astral. It's like hell. But when you die here, you go to that heaven.
Which is not ever meant to have been scripturally portrayed as a permanent state, right? It's like people who have had communication with astral beings in ways that I consider like trustworthy, always report back that like, no, that's not a permanent state. It's more like, you could consider almost like the Catholic purgatory, but there's not like a priest who's the gatekeeper of letting you out. It's whether or not the being can fully become conscious of the suffering that they themselves contained. So
Yeah.
it's also, I mean, usually that's in the form of like how you made other people feel too, but it's like whatever, as soon as you go through the fires of purification that are the things that you've repressed that hurt, then you're no longer in like what you consider the hell or purgatory state, right? And
Right.
it's like a healing. It's like just like when your body is healing, it might not feel good. You know, it's like a
That's right.
it's
That's
like
right.
a
I would imagine. I
mental
would imagine
detox.
that it could be tremendously painful though, because I've had glimpses. I mean, I've had glimpses using certain medicines of hell, and like I smoked DMT once, and I would like, this is my personal feeling. I would never recommend anybody smoke DMT. It's just too skyrocketing somewhere.
I
But
think I've
I
done it
was.
a solid dozen times in my life.
Oh yeah, nice, nice. I did it a few times, and then I hit this place of pure hell,
Wow.
and I don't even want to talk about it. But
To
I
me, it was
couldn't.
salvia that sent me to hell. DMT was always all good.
Oh, salvia is another example of this. Like, you're totally depersonalized, and it's like 10, 15 minutes tops, and it's so like rah, that it could be. I could see that it could bring you there. I could totally see that.
So
So,
what happened when you did DMT, Moshe? I want to know.
well, I'm not exactly sure. Well, okay. So I've done DMT, like drinking ayahuasca, and I've made it in a lab where I isolate the DMT, and I with the help of a friend of mine who's like a mad genius chemist and yogi, really cool guy, Eric. So I've done DMT multiple times. When I smoked it, it was just so powerful, and I wasn't ready, or I was absolutely
There's no way
needed
to
to
be ready.
go. What's that?
There's no way to be ready.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
just
especially
find
when
it.
you're
You
like,
just take the ride.
I was just in pure hell. There was the presence of enormously oppressive dark forces, and I was just praying with all my heart and soul. I just went into some deep ass prayer, and then it passed, and I was fine. It actually felt quite good after it. So maybe it cleared something, or it was necessary for me to go there. I'm not really sure, but certainly that was a something to never forget.
Usually when I did it, I just got sent to like I would just witness Buddha, basically. That's the
That's
best way to describe
amazing.
it. I would just see like the form of the what you would call the Buddha. I would refer to it more as like, you know, the son of God. So this would apply to all of the archetypes, right? That primary being the trunk of the tree of life. And I would
Yeah.
just see that being in the meditative posture with like spinning fractal mandala going around it. And I would be witnessing it from the outside, like watching it move, and then it would be like, just go with the flow, man. And then I would enter into it, and we would move together. It was
Oh
super cool.
wow.
Or either that, or I would see the giant like Zardoz head, but it's made out of letters and numbers and some script I don't recognize, like almost like, you know, like the Matrix code, but that is
Yeah, yeah,
becoming 3 dimensional. And
yeah.
it's like a giant talking head, and it's like, you know, I would ask it like, when am I gonna be a good enough boy? And it'd be like, whatever you ask, I'm just gonna tell you you're already that. And it was just like this rapid fire machine gun of affirmations. I was like, this is crazy. And then, you know, then it shoots me back down. So I never kept doing it because the last time I tried it, nothing happened. It was like,
Wow.
you already know this stuff. Like, how many
Yeah,
times are you
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
keep knocking on that door? But
yeah,
it's I don't recommend it. I don't not recommend it. I know people that have had the hell trips too and the demon trips too,
yeah.
but it's always been gentle to me. I always just got like radical, cosmic, loving affirmation, like, hey, nothing to worry about. This is what you really are. Everything else. It's
That's
like
great.
it gives you the realization of how intense an idea can be. That's what DMT feels like. It feels like you got caught into a train of thought and you're spacing out, kind of daydreaming, but dial that up to like 11,000. And then when the trip ends, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sitting here. And that's actually what I consider from enough DMT trips, that it's like when you die, it's just like, oh, I was just thinking really hard about being chance on
Exactly.
Earth. But actually, I can think about all this other stuff too. I was just really focused on this one daydream. That's really what it's like here.
Yeah, I like that. I myself had that experience, and a lot of the people that I've spoken to about DMT, that they've said like it's like about the cycle of death and rebirth. Is DMT really brings them there, and so a lot of them would be cycling through death and rebirth, and then they realize to let go, and then that stopped because they were kind of like, oh, here comes the death, and then they would be reborn. And then,
having used it as much as I did, I mean, not like an insane amount, but like it actually gave me almost like a psychic sense of smell of death. Like I can smell the death energy or death portal when it's around or on somebody. It's really weird. It's hard to describe, but it's like it actually comes through as a scent.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, all the scents,
and it smells like DMT. So like when somebody is near death, I smell DMT.
Well, DMT is higher in people's brains when they're dying, and it's high in their brains when they're newly born, and it's high in your brain when you're going through a dark night of the soul and you're being crushed by the force of the universe, and you're down on your knees, and the ego is it's in such agony as it has its comforts being pulled away from it for whatever reason. So there's DMT spikes, natural spikes during those times. And yeah, I think if anybody does do it, that they should, research the person and do it with someone who's well trained, and they're a clean spirit, a clean soul. Because I had the opportunity of meeting some pretty big egoic leaders. They were very egoic, and it's such a powerful medicine that you don't want to be. Because
I think people should do it by themselves.
Well, do it by yourself, but if you could do it in a group too, but just make sure that the person leading the group has a very evolved consciousness, and is not in it for their ego. Because any organization, even a hospital, right, or the government, or a school, the head of the organization, their consciousness trickles down as the top of the pyramid. So in doing ayahuasca, if you're doing ayahuasca and somebody's leading and they're highly egoic, they're putting a very not good energy over that journey. And I don't even know how many, there are some good leaders out there, but I wouldn't say that they're the majority. So be discerning, Also,
since your body knows exactly what to do with it, because it does endogenously release it, that's why I'm cool with considering it safe, at least on like the smoking level. Maybe not the ayahuasca level, but on the smoking level, because it's so fast. Like you're safe to do that by yourself. Then there's no contaminating energy. Don't even listen to music. Everything about your environment will influence what's going on in your
trip. Meanwhile, I'm just saying don't smoke because it's ridiculously intense. But I mean, if everybody's different, and I would not make that declaration for everybody. I myself wouldn't recommend.
Fair.
Yeah. So cool. I know we got off topic. We were talking about the heaven of heaven.
Yeah, I love talking about DMT. Not a lot of people ever did it. So
yeah. Great. Yeah. One of the impressions that I got, when I read, I was reading, it was sort of in the same time of my life. I read the autobiography of a yogi. And then I also read Proof of Heaven by Dr. Eben Alexander. Really great book. It's like it's very faith building. He was a neurosurgeon who was very like aromatically obsessed with proof, and very left brain and judgmental about people when they had near-death experiences. It was just, it's just brain activity. Like he just dismissed anything that was non-material. And then he had this incredible, he was basically brain dead for over a week. He had no brain activity on the brain scan, but they had him on like life support. and he journeying into all the different worlds, and his description of the different places is clearly, he starts in the lower form of the astral, he goes into the astral, then he goes into the causal, and then he's shown a glimpse into the absolute, the beyond. But
that's what I want to know about. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was amazing because I juxtaposed the writings of Sri Yukteswar, who's Paramahansa Yogananda's master, his guru, and they're so similar. All the quotes, like I even in my course in the program of holistic counseling, when I teach the advanced course, I show the similarities in their language, and they're total mirrors. So what I understand is the world of the causal is so holy. The holiness there is so intense and so much joy. In the yogic tradition, it's called what is the word for joy again? It's oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting. Anyway, it'll come to me in a sec. But the word for joy, it's
Ananda?
Maybe somebody in the room is, what's the Sanskrit word?
Ananda?
Yeah, it's Ananda Maya Kosha. So that's the actual name for the causal body. The causal world is so full of joy and holiness that the angels that exist in that plane, they can't help it. They must chant. Holy, holy, holy is God, Lord of hosts. In the Hebrew, it's Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot. Holy, holy, holy is God, Lord of hosts. So everybody chants, and the world itself, in the center of the world, like the very center, sits the Christ on the throne. And around the Christ sits the four beasts of the apocalypse, or the Maaseh Merkava, like in the Kabbalistic teachings of the four beasts. You have the lion, the bull, the man, and the eagle. And around them,
also the cardinal directions of the zodiac.
The fixed points. They're the fixed points, not the cardinals. Yeah,
you're right.
Exactly. No, very good observation. Excellent observation. So there's
cross.
Yeah, it's the cross, and there's a lot of alchemical secrets in there. That's like my ring. This ring is based. Wait, how do I'm like going upside down here. Yeah, this ring is.
Is there a shin in there? Is there a shin in the?
Yeah, that's right. There's Yud Hey Vav Hey for the four worlds, and Shin. So it spells. This is how I like to spell the name Yeshua. It's Yud Hey Shin Vav Hey. Not the spelling with the ayin, but this with the sheen. Sorry, the Yud Hey Shin Vav Hey. So it's basically in the name Yahweh, but with the sheen. And then there's the four gemstones that rule those zodiacs. And then I have some of the symbols, like that's a symbol of Taurus, like this. My gosh, because my camera is reversed. Like this is actually the right, but you know, you're used to like navigating in a mirror. This is a symbol of.
Is there any like gematria gravy in adding a shin to Yod He Vav He? Because that would be 326 instead of 26. I don't know off the top of my head.
There probably is. I can't say what it is right now. I don't know per se. But there is, like, if you break down, there is something. I got some gravy for you. I totally got some gravy for you. Okay. So the gematria of Yud He Vav He is 26, right? If you look at the sheen, there's
10565.
That's right. The Yud is 10, the He is 5, the Vav is 6, the He is 5. So that's 26. If the sheen is actually made up of two Yuds and a Vav. That's what makes up the sheen. It's a triple letter. There's two Yuds and a Vav, which internal gematria of 26.
Wow. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's the next level of Hebrew that I'm not equipped for yet, is like that. I'm still just wrapping my head around being able to recognize the letters. I felt like enough of a champion to be able to read the, in my opinion, hardest alphabet of all time to decipher.
The Hebrew, you think it's the hardest? Oh,
I
it's
think there's intentionally I think it's intentionally a code, intentionally like an initiatic script. I don't think it was ever meant for anybody publicly speaking. It's like tricky on purpose. My
well,
opinion.
that's funny because that's what a lot of like ultra Orthodox Jews that don't like the colloquial use of Hebrew on the street. You know, they don't approve of the modern Israel.
I don't think it was originally meant to be used by people on the street. I don't think it
Well, I
was
don't.
clunky.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I could kind of see what you're saying. It's almost like it's so holy that it shouldn't be used in a modern day language with people swearing at each other and
It's not
yelling.
so much about the words, because the words themselves are composed of roots that have, fingerprints throughout whatever universal system may have existed in prehistory that we
Yeah,
only got fingerprints of. But it's the writing itself. And I think that that's just part of the nature of writing, was that at an earlier time, letters themselves were a secret. When you get into the symbolism of like the logos and the mercurial savior figures, a lot of times they seem to indicate representing the secret of letters themselves. Like that, there was a point where the people that had literacy, they were keeping it intentionally to themselves, because it was like it was a
right.
wicked power differential to be able to transmit. There's lots of shipping, sailing symbolism that goes into all that too, because
Yeah.
similarly, as a ship, a book or letters can send wisdom or goods into another place, another time.
It also develops like understanding language and letters develops the intellect in a way that is deepens one's harmonic connection with the physical reality. So, like when that goes too far, you lose touch with the spiritual world. You become too harmonic, and it's dark. It's
Yeah.
dark, but that develops intellect. Dr. James Hurtak, J.J.
The
Hurtak of
letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life.
right.
2 Corinthians.
The Keys of Enoch, written by James Hurtak, or transceived, brought from the higher heavens, as he claims. He says there's 5 sacred languages on the planet, meaning they emanate from the intelligence of the universe, from God, and Hebrew is one of them. And there's this institute called the Morone Institute,
Do you know what the
MER.
others are, or any of the others?
I could try to hit that up. So there's Tibetan. So there's Hebrew, Tibetan. There's the ancient Egyptian picture languages, like hieroglyphics, I think it would be. There's Sanskrit, definitely Sanskrit. And what is the last one? There's an ancient form of Chinese that they said was holy.
They're leaving out ancient Etruscan. It it resonates across all of those other ones. Like
What's it called?
the ancient Etruscan alphabet. Yeah, I mean, it's not one that is well studied and is kind of suppressed, oddly enough.
Yeah,
But
cool,
I think that it links to all those other ones. I'm not saying that's
cool.
the source one, but that's another one that's really interesting to look at.
Yeah, man. So I was talking about the Morone Institute, and they did this very, very, very cool experiment where they took the Hebrew letters and they spoke the letter. So Aleph, the first letter, which is interesting because the first letter is Aleph, the second is Bet. Aleph Bet sounds like alphabet, right? So that's not connectionitis. That's a reality. That's a real connection right there. But basically, when they spoke it into a microphone and they projected the waves made by saying Aleph, it made an Aleph in actual visual reality. And the same with
Whoa.
bait. So it would make these waveforms that coalesce to make the actual letter that is the enunciation of the word, which shows that when you're speaking this language, this particular holy language, you're sending waves of creation of these forms through reality. It's very powerful. It's very amazing.
I like I really like this subject. We should
It's
just talk
fun.
about Hebrew sometime for 2 hours. But the if you look at what they say is the original Aleph, which is Phoenician,
Uh-huh.
um, the claim is that one of the reasons why that letter also represents like a bull or an
Right.
ox is because the Phoenician version of it. Let me pull it up. I can
Yeah,
screenshot it.
I've seen that.
They
I've
say
seen that.
this.
I have some reservations about this idea.
I do too, and I wanted to see. That's why I wanted to bring it up because I have a different theory about it. So,
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah.
shape they're saying is representative of like a ox head or something.
I don't see any relationship there whatsoever with the Aleph.
So, what do you see about this visually? What what do you
What,
think
the
it might represent?
Phoenician?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, it looks like almost like a mathematical greater than symbol, you know? It's an A
Interesting.
turned on its side, definitely an A turned on its side.
So I think that it looks like a
A bellows.
bellows,
Oh yeah, yeah, that's cool.
which is a bag of wind, a wind
Uh-huh.
bag.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Which
which
which is
totally
interesting.
totally is like what the I think that that gets into like the symbolism of the Fool card in the first step of the tarot and all that too. But like
That's cool.
the wind bag is like a bag of breath, a bag of spirit, and it's going, it's coming out
Well,
of the
that
bag.
dovetails well with what I understand. So in Hebrew, there's 3 mother letters. And this is according to the Sefer Yetzirah. It's one of the oldest books of Kabbalah. The 3 mother letters are Shin, Mem, and He. Shin, Mem, and Aleph. The Shin represents Aish, fire. The Mem represents Mayim, which is water. So that's the father and the mother.
And
The father,
memory,
yeah,
water and memory, the
okay,
mem.
sure, sure. So you got fire, you got water, and when they come together, they make air. The love making between fire and water makes air, but a special kind of air. It's air that carries water. Because when you put fire into water, the water is steamed into the air. And the air that carries water is the water bearing element, which is the Aquarius element. That's the fixed sign of the zodiac that is the Christ child. So in the mystery of the causal plane, the throne room, the alchemical union of opposites, the Sheen and the Mem come together and they make the Aleph, which is air. And so that I could see connection with the Phoenician, because it's like what you're saying about the bellows is air. And maybe we have a little bit of connectionitis here, but I like it. It does resonate a little bit there. So for me, the bull is an interesting. I'm actually writing a book about this. The bull is the physical reality. It holds the earth element. It's ruled by Taurus. Taurus is the earth element in the 4 beasts of the apocalypse, or the beast in the throne room of the Christ. And so the word that is spelled basically, okay, so when you make the yud and the vav are the fire and the water, the yud and the vav, right? So I'll bring this up here. I'll put it right in front. Okay, so let me see if I can point to it because I'm so backwards. Oh, thank you. Okay, so we got yud, which is fire. That's the lion. And then we got vav, which is the Scorpio water element. That's the mother. So father and mother, they make love, and then they make the hay in the Yud Hey Vav Hey. So this hay is actually representative of the marriage of opposites. This is the causal world. It's also the world of air. And now opposite that, you have the other hay. Oh, sorry. So this is the Aquarian. Amethyst rules Aquarius. So this is that hay. And then the other hay here is Taurus. It's ruled by Emerald. So this hay here is the opposite of this hey. They're as above, so below. Shamayim v'ha'aretz, the heavens and the earth. In the beginning of God creating the heavens and the earth, so basically that goes Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et ha'aretz. In the beginning of God creating the heavens, Shamayim, which is two words, Aish and Mayim. Shamayim, the heavens is made up of two words, fire and water. The heavens is opposite the earth. The earth moves in the opposite direction of the heavens in time. So you might geek out on this. I think you might enjoy this. There's a word that is made from the three mother letters. So we have Shin, Mem, and Aleph, which represents the heavens. All right, you with me? This is the heavenly realm. This is the godly realm. And then on came the bull, which created a physical reality. And the word is Emesh, Aleph, Mem, Shin, which is backwards. And it literally means, Emesh means last night or yesterday. It's symbolic of the past. When Moses meets the golden calf, when Moses meets the burning bush, he asks the burning bush, who shall I tell the children of Israel what your name is? And the burning bush replies, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which means I am that I am is translated, but it actually means I shall be that I shall be. It's from the moment of now into the future. That's the way Shemayim moves. It moves forward. The physical world reality moves backward. So you have, in this point of time, you have the spiritual realm moving forward and you have the physical realm moving backward. They're going like this in opposite directions. And at a certain point, they meet up again. The very first word of the Torah, this is very deep mystery coming together here, is Bereshit. Bereshit. It means, if there's three words in there, or there's three meanings, it's Ba in the Rosh, in the head, in the beginning.
Also
Yesh,
means wisdom.
Bereshit.
Or Rosh means wisdom and head.
Oh, Rosh,
it's the exact
that's right.
same as the Greek arche, which
is good.
Wisdom and
yeah.
head. And if you look at that word, like if you kind of, this could just be connectionitis, right? But I've heard it made a really good case before that the bet to the resh that's there, and then the resh to the shin, it's almost like it's just one letter, but it's connecting the two. It could almost be like bra, which is to form or create, and then ras, which is wisdom. Like, so that in the beginning you could, most people get hung up on like, it should be in a beginning. Like, it's not the only beginning, which I can get behind that too. But when I see that word, I'm thinking by wisdom, God created, not in the beginning, God created. And it's not even God, it's Alaim, which is like goddesses plural. So
yeah, the Elohim, that's right. It's the creator aspect of God, which are in a form of manifestation.
And then there's contention about the bra being, is it created ex nihilo or is it formed from materials already existing? But when you look at their traditions surrounding, when Genesis would have been written, it's more likely, in context to the world at that time, that it's formed, out of formed chaotic pre-existing materials into the world rather than ex nihilo. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's describing a cycle of creation. Like, at the beginning of this cycle, this happened. Yeah, I like that more.
Yesh ma'ayin, it's something from nothing. That's the ex nihilo. What I understand, I think there's multiple meanings for these words. Like there's
that's
multiple
what scriptures
levels.
do. They're anagogical. Like
Well, what I was saying is the word bereshit. It has the meaning. What I was just saying now from the heavens moving forward in time, and this is the way God creates. God says, Yehi or, let there be light, like literally let light be in the future. Vayehi or, and light shall be in the future, and light will be. So this
This
is the
is
way.
also something we lose in modern English, is these future tense verbs.
Yeah.
That is part of the Hebrew language, part of like ancient Greek. We can't even hardly wrap our minds around that tense. We don't speak that way. We have to
It's
like,
almost like when you have to sit with the meaning and meditate on it, because you can't put it into language. I'm having a hard time doing it. So God creates in this way of there shall be, let there be, and it shall be, and it shall be. Eya asher eya, I shall be as I shall be. It's moving forward. The physical world that's ruled by the bull is moving backward. And in the very first word of the Torah, Bereshit, it's basically what it's saying is Barosh Yesh Tav. In the beginning, there is the end. The end is in the beginning, and the beginning is in the end. That's the snake eating its tail.
and that's the cycle of destruction and regeneration of worlds that was common to the mystery school doctrines of the time period that Genesis would be contemporary with, which is my favorite thing to explore, is like how when you understand this symbolic canon of the ancients, that all Genesis type stories, all creation stories are deluge stories, and all like world ending deluge stories are creation stories.
Right.
So it's like there's not nobody knows when maybe there isn't the first one. It's just talking about like, you know, it's the Ouroboros that you're describing.
That's right. Exactly. The beginning and the end becomes very wishy-washy as the physical reality. The bull holds the past and goes further and further away from the future. At some point, they merge again. And it's like when the left goes far, far left and the right goes far, far right. Well, they meet in this place. I mean, I'm joking a little bit politically, but the end of days, you know, the Bible predicts that there's a passage, it's Matthew 27:32, I think, or 23 or something like that. Maybe some Bible nerd could bring up that exact passage, but basically it says that when the Son of Man will return, it will be like the days of Noah. So what are the days of Noah? Well, it's the flood. And people were there. That's when the sons of gods were merging with the daughters of man, and the Nephilim were created. And the Nephilim were, I hate to say it, it's really dark as heck, but they were drinking blood. They were drinking human blood. And we know what that points to with what's happening on the planet today. So
you mean like, you know, Peter Thiel injecting himself with young people's blood? Don't worry, guys. He's just the dude behind JD Vance, his mentor and stuff, creator of Palantir, ultimate surveillance state capitalist. Peter Thiel, nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
Also, he injects the blood of young people into his body.
Brutal.
Openly. No big deal.
That's horrible. It's gross. So it's gross. Very, very dark, very evil. So that's symbolic of that. Where this all started is where it's going to end. So when the Son of Man will return. And now that, I mean, Jesus riding in on a cloud, I'm not sure that's how it will be. The way I actually think this will happen, actually, I don't know exactly, but the way I think is that he'll come after humanity wakes up as a collective. So there'll be a mass awakening where the Christ will just like awaken within us. There's some work to be done. We're all working on our shit, and we're getting closer and closer to the divine, letting go of the illusions that we don't need to hold on to, letting go of our desires, and opening up to the Christ that lives inside, because Christ is in the causal, in us. Like, it's everywhere. It cannot not be. It's just everywhere. So we wake up. It comes
back to, like, you're talking about Noah, that word, nun, hey, philologically, you can make a strong case that it's the same as the Greek nous, because an S and an H consonant wise can interchange between dialects and languages. So when we're talking about Noah, we're talking about mind, the incarnation of the divine mind. So Noah being the same as the Hindu Menu, when we look at that template, every cycle of world ending and recreation, Menu reincarnates, and he's the one that is the figure of transition between ages, world ages.
That's interesting. I
so
see
like
that.
Jesus would be an incarnation of
Noah.
the same. Noah and Jesus are incarnations of the same divinity, transitioning through world ages. In my
Yeah,
opinion,
the Hebrew name of Noah is Noach. It has a chet at the end, so it's a little different for that. But I mean, if you want to make a connection there, I don't necessarily see that connection.
Lots of philologists have made that connection. I just repeat them, but I think it's there.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. But what I find very interesting and what I find exciting is that I think that there are a lot of signs that, at least the way the Torah depicts the end of days, they're here now. There's some prophecies being fulfilled, some words that point to it. Like in that portion of Torah, it says that the world was full of violence at that time and during the time of Noah. And the word for violence is Hamas. And in Jacob's prediction for the end of days for Simeon and Levi, he says, Kli Hamas Mechera Tehem, which means instruments of violence or tools of violence in their dwellings. So that shows us, amongst many other things, there's many other prophecies, like the Hopi prophecy. There's prophecies that when the red maples would die from the top down, it would be the end of days. There's lots of prophecies, and I've seen red maples dying from the top down. I had 2 on my land when I lived in Montreal, where I grew up with my parents.
We got a lot of those around here.
And are they dying from the top down? Do you see them dying?
Not that I've seen, but I'm not looking for that particular portent.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just saying that there's a lot of prophecies that are pointing to these times as being the end of times.
What I want people who entertain such a notion as end of days or end times to realize about their own system is that it doesn't mean it's all over. It means a new beginning follows a kind of like a demarcation point. So everybody that looks at the somewhat biblical symbolism happening in world events thinking, oh, Jesus is about to come back or the world's about to be destroyed. Yeah, but that doesn't mean live like, YOLO, there's no tomorrow, there's no consequences to your actions, or you don't need to think about 7 generations down the line. It means that like you could consider it more like a reset point of sorts, but there's definitely existence is going to keep on existing, baby. Like,
well, it means to me what we have been yearning for in our souls for a very long time will come to be. It's basically all positive. There's certainly a lot of challenge getting there, but it really is like the fulfillment of the purpose of this chapter of creation and being brought into the physical and forgetting who we are and all the suffering. It's basically the end of that suffering. I believe that we will evolve as in humanity and evolve the planet. The planet will be raised in consciousness and will join in synergy, in harmony with the rest of the universe, because planet Earth has a certain place of density and bottlenecking of souls. It's like trapping energies for the evolution of all of the universe. Not to say that they're in a place of, like other civilizations are in a place of obeisance with the divine will, but planet Earth isn't. So when planet Earth gets its act together and evolves, I think that's going to lift this portion, and that might have an impact on a broader scale.
So that sounds good. I also wonder if the disorder is baked in, not that it has to be quite so disorderly, but that in a sense of dynamic disequilibrium in nature is like a necessity for growth. And so there's not like a perfected getting everything in line. But there's definitely like orders of magnitude better and worse levels of being in line. But I don't see it as like I don't know that there's a final attainment. That's all.
Well, I've heard this idea before, and the idea that Earth is the place of struggle. You struggle because you come and you're very densely in your body and you forget who you are. And
it's a dojo.
Yeah. It's a dojo. It's a dense dojo. It's the dense dojo. So, I could just tell you what I feel about that. I'm not saying I know that this is a fact. I think I don't know exactly what's going to come. But I this is partly what I hope and what I feel will happen is that that struggle comes from ignorance, right? Like we struggle because we forget who we are. So you could say that like people, as we come here, that we willfully take on this mantle of forgetting. Like literally there's that idea that, Gabriel hits you right here. That's why you have that little thing underneath your nose. Gabriel hits you and makes you forget your divine connection. And then you could go through all the learning. But I think at a certain point that fulfills
just under your nose.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at a certain point that fulfills its purpose. Like we get it. And not to say that another Earth of a similar nature, or the exact same Earth, or it'll stay in that reality, but then there might be something that's elevated from that reality into a higher level of reality. Perhaps we move out of the collective density, the trapped nature, the fall, like the quote unquote fallen nature of ignorance of the planet, and we elevate that. And it's like, yay, like hooray. And then maybe we're like, all right, let's do it again. Like,
yeah. I see it, back to the DMT thing. I see the fallen nature as potentially being kind of that obsessive focus on this spectrum of thought that is our physical experience. When some of these substances like DMT show you that actually there's a whole radio, you have this radio dial that can just go all the way over here or over here, and you're not stuck here at all. And we can get there even endogenously with, like, back to shamanic journey work is a way to start exploring other settings on your receiver. But if we as individuals, I don't know if it's something that happens to the collective all at once or if that's possible or what. But if we could get to the point where it's like, I'm not so scared of potential and possibility and unknown that I have to stay right here focused on what's right in front of me in this physical reality. That I like, if I can just at any time be anything, anywhere, in any way, and that with the trust and knowledge that, like, that doesn't delete or disintegrate the value that is the value of thought in, like, the mind tunnel that you've dug out on this particular station. You know what I mean? Because, like, right now, very few of us, almost nobody, has the ability to just at will shift their experience into, dimensions of scale and possibility that are beyond what we consider human and earthly. Yet that ability is an intrinsic element of this mind that we use.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the higher up bodies that you're talking about, but, like, we never didn't have it. So, like, maybe getting out of the fallen state is where this, instead of being like, I have to do this and I'm scared of what it would be to not be doing this, aka life in a human body, becomes, I'm choosing to do this right now, but I could do anything else too. And I can always still choose this.
Sure. I can see that as a possibility.
It's hard to put into words.
For sure, it's hard. It's very subtle, and there's a lot of nuances. I think that, if human beings are central to this creation. I know that some people have criticized, that's so egomaniac or something. Maybe it's a half truth.
Absolutely, obviously true.
It's absolutely obviously true. Flat, and the earth is still, and the cosmos rotates around the earth. So earth is a very important place where this human being was created to walk the earth and to evolve his and her consciousness to return to the creator. When that happens, because human beings are so central, then our consciousness will lift up the very matrix of reality that we're in, so that it loses its such a strong and densely perceived reality. Because we perceive the reality so densely because it's so dense as well, in a way. or what we may say is, as we evolve and we undensify ourselves, or we do not identify so heavily with this earthly reality, that it actually aggrandizes or shifts into a less dense reality and more of the nature of light, like the astral, more of the nature of the astral, or something like that. Some people say fifth dimension, whatever that is.
More free will choice, less I have to do this, I'm afraid of not doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't die because you have been really,
free your mind, Neo.
Yeah, you free your mind. You're not dying out of like, shit, I wish I could live a little longer, but I'm gonna die now, and you're dead. But that you can live longer if you choose, or you could die, you could have that experience. It's more free like that, like what you said. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's like, maybe in relationship to, this is a bit like too much of a can of worms open, because we really got to wrap it up. But
yeah,
the way that our culture is so necrophobic, right? Like hiding death, avoiding death at all costs, it's the worst possible outcome, etc. There's, in my opinion, a relationship to the prevalence of this necrophobia to also the shortening of attention spans. This is hard bow to draw, but it's like,
it scatters energy. The fear of death scatters energy, so you're not present, right? That's what
right. And you're so focused on your life, in a sense, like your egoic life, you could say, that you could consider it like you're using all of your mental power to hang on for dear life to this train of thought, not even realizing that your life as a human being and your egoic experience is akin to a really engrossing train of thought or daydream. And so because we're so afraid to loosen our grip on that, it makes it really difficult for the average person to think deeply outside of their egoic day-to-day experience, aka their attention span to ponder, to contemplate. The philosophical life, the vita contemplativa, is diminished further and further as everyone is so obsessively entrenched in the vita activa.
Trying to control
the theory versus praxis thing.
Yeah, totally. I like that.
I think there's something to that.
Yeah. That's cool. I just wanted to finish. Like, I know you sense that I feel our discussion, our great discussion, coming to an end.
I feel like we could just talk forever, dude. It's fun talking to you.
It's fun talking, places. Right? I enjoy it too. I just wanted to sort of talk about the heaven of heaven for a sec. Like,
please, it's a great place to go.
Like the angels are so full of joy, they can't help but chant, holy, 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 like with total.
That's because chants are great.
Chants are great. Chants is referring to himself in the plural right now, which is really funny. Yeah, man, that's it. And that feeling, wow. It's a you know what a Zen koan is, right? Like, you imagine something. So like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? Well, or if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Well, how about this one? What's the heaven of heaven? Just sit and dwell in that for a bit. That'll be a real nice meditation. Yeah.
It's not about the answer. It's about the question. The question is what is the connector from A to B. Yeah. Keep that quest eye on. Love it.
Nice.
Cool, nice. Man. Well, anything you want to let people know about or whatever before we wrap up? I feel like we just gotta do this more often, dude.
It's fun, man. Thank you. Thanks for that. So if anybody wants to contact me, they can go to Dr. -, like dash Moshe, Moshe, like my name, but not a dot. It's a -sign between the doctor and the Moshe.com. And that's, I work with people personally, one-on-one. I have a health program. And if you're interested in training with me, oh, very good. Thank you. Perfect. If you're interested in training and learning the V's dialogue, then that would be at holistic, HOLISTIC -counseling with 1L.ca. And if that's too much to like get down, whatever, you can, you could search for holistic counseling, Dr. Moshe. You'll find that website, or just contact me through Dr. Moshe. That'll be great. That'll work just fine.
Beautiful. Yep. We need more people in the world equipped with this various knowledge sets, whether it's the anatomy of the energy field or any other system that gives us the connectivity between the mind and the body. That is the core. Really, your body. You know, I like how Eileen McCusick puts it. Your mind isn't in your body. Your body is in your mind.
Right.
And that's the first step to the holistic life, right?
Yeah, so, and also you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, if people want to work with me for some tuning, you guys know where to find me. InnerVersePodcast.com. The tuning page is /sound-healing. And we'll do it again sooner than later, man. I know I say that every time we talk. So I'll try to maybe keep you in mind for more regular commentary on subjects I think that you're good on. I have a roster of regulars that I bring on to Vibe Rant for more like panel discussions. So
cool, man. Cool. Thank you for that. I appreciate that invite. We'll stay in touch. I can almost guarantee it won't be before Christmas, just of everything that's going on. So the New Year, so have Merry Christmas, New Year, all the good stuff, and enjoy your
Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and all the rest too, and Yule.
Thank you. Amen. Sounds good.
All right. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Cheers.